One parent.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Tonight's meeting, we are starting with a joint school board committee meeting first, and then the council meeting will follow afterwards. First off, I would like to to welcome new school board member Carolyn Warnoff, introduce you to the council. Welcome to your first joint meeting with us. She, new school board member for Ward 2, replacing Artie Archie.
Ward 1.
I'm sorry, Ward 1, thank you, yes. You're 2. Okay, we have 2 items to discuss this evening. The first one being the school construction update. Superintendent Ray.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I have several things for you tonight. Prepared a memo because it's just easier for you guys to have it in writing and be able to reference back on it. And so I'll go through just a couple of items, if you don't mind. Jody, if I take them a little bit out of order just to follow along with the memo, that would be great. The first piece is just to talk about trends of enrollment in our city. As you can see, I've provided a breakdown for you all to look at. And generally what we're seeing is that the coastal side of Main Street is starting to have less students, and the northern side of North Saco is starting to have more students. And I suspect that's just about affordability. I worked on some things today for another meeting, and in York County, the median home price was like $480,000, and I believe in the Saco area it was a little bit higher than that. And so certainly as you think about the prices of family, kids, and all of those pieces, that trend tends to live itself out right in our city. Our enrollment as a district is up about on the pre-K through 8 side is up about 30 students from last year, and we're seeing increases in our EL and homeless numbers again and again. We'll get to that in a little bit. Where our big enrollment pieces are, and I know that I kind of laid this out financially for us because I know that people will have questions, is that we are seeing, we saw from last spring 55 additional students at Thornton Academy from last spring, and I kind of broke those down of what grade levels you would expect to see them at based off the information that we have, which puts us in a situation where we had a buffer of 25 students from last spring, which over the last couple of years has been plenty. It's not this year. And so I've given you guys a financial breakdown of where the costs are, and I still feel pretty confident that we're going to be okay to work this out budget-wise unless maximum allowable tuition is way greater than 6%, then that certainly would change things. It does make it a little bit of a challenge for us because one of the things that the school committee and I have had to do since the budget passed is one, hire an additional teacher at Young School just based off numbers of students in those classrooms. And we have a posting for a couple of ed tech positions for EL students because we are now over 240 students that are EL, and our numbers are just high. You can post positions, but then you have to have bodies to fill those, which can be another challenge all into itself. But one of those pieces are, I just want to let you know, is that, we go through a verification process for enrollment, which we will continue to work on this fall to make sure, because historically seeing any student gain 55 students in a city in the state of Maine is a challenge in itself. That doesn't tend to happen. And where they're all at one level, we just have to make sure. So we're running some checks just to make sure that, there's an attraction at times for the academy. We just have to be on top of those pieces by looking at, what happens, because that's a big swing financially for our taxpayers. And so we'll work through those pieces. The next piece is school construction update, which is pretty exciting. We're kind of into, I guess what I would say are different fun parts of the project. And certainly it was fun last year as we got to start envisioning what the outside of the building looks like. But now we're spending a whole lot of time on the inside of the building. And the big efforts that we have going on right now are, the really exciting things about picking out storage shelves. If you're really into that, that's a big one. But one of our things that we've been really looking at on the school department side is not only are we concerned about costs that would happen today, but I'm really interested in long-term costs in a school department, because over the course of my career, I think about how every summer in a school building you spend so many hours on flooring, because everybody walks into a school building and says, boy, I want that tile floor to pop. And so we've worked with several of the vendors for what we're considering for flooring in the new building, and we've actually gotten them to agree to install four or five different types in our classrooms at Fairfield School, so that we can try out and kind of test what we think might be a better long-term solution, because the number of employee hours plus the chemicals and those costs over a 20-year period, I'm really interested in working with the state and locally to say, while you may pay a little bit more today, over the next 20 years, that's a very different thing. And we chose Fairfield School for a number of reasons. One, just because we had some needs in that building. Number two, we really wanted to have a consistent cleaning staff work with it, so we were trying to compare apples to apples in the cleaning method. And then number three, that is on a cement slab that holds a lot of moisture, and so we were interested in see how that moisture content would react to different types of flooring type. The other two big projects that we're working on right now, and there's a host of meetings scheduled with different groups, is the first one is we are working on putting together a group to try to think about themes for the new building and how we can build upon those themes based off our history and our natural environment throughout the building and some of those pieces, because certainly the river is a big part of it, but so are our beaches, our shores, and other places. So we're trying to think about how that theme can be incorporated into the new buildings. And then last week, while I didn't get to participate and Meg did, we were able to work with our fifth graders to start thinking about what their wishes and dreams for a playground would have been like for their school experience, so we can bring kids into that process. So those are the pieces that are happening right now. From a financial side, John and I have been working on the bonds and the bands and all of those pieces to get started on that project. And we're really hoping that by next spring or summertime, we'll be out to bid and move things right along. It's a long process throughout the year. And then finally, another big piece that really want to touch on is just the evolving need that we have in our communities. And I know you guys hear from me a lot on this piece, but when we think about population shifts and what we're doing is, right now we have our highest number is 115 homeless students at one time. And that, that does not mean that people are on the street. But that means they're doubled up, staying in cars, and, it's early. And so, I just put some information there together so that you can look at, and some of this information was coming because the next topic I talk about, I was doing some work today around affordability in the area. And, there's a great statistic out there that in the state of Maine, statewide for a family of four, kind of like the basic survival income is a little over $99,000 combined to meet basic needs. And probably I suspect that's a little bit higher in southern Maine. But that's 330% of the federal poverty level, looking at a family of four at poverty levels $31,000. And I think one of the pieces that we have to think about is even our own employees, that if you have a couple of kids and you're on a beginning teacher salary, you're like at the basic need side of things. And so I just want to continue to draw our attention to that, because as I do the calculations for our reporting, is getting closer to 1 in 3 students in the city of Saco living in poverty. And last year I was talking to you about 1 in 4 students. So that number's on the incline. When I first became superintendent several years ago here in Saco, we had about 40 ELL students, and now you're at 240 EL students. That's quite a change in our demographic and our population here. And so on the very last page, the piece that I want to get to you, and you will get all of this information from John, but anytime I have a chance to put it out there right now, because I've been meeting with our York County Superintendents Association, a couple of community partners, City of Sanford, and we're going to be hosting kind of a meeting on November 14th from 5:30 to 8, and the location will be Sanford High School. And this will be for all elected officials locally and at the state level, from city councilors, town selectmen, school committees, and anybody moving on for, as a state official, to talk about not only the challenges we have with homelessness and emergency housing and shelter in York County and in our area, but also just to start thinking about the upcoming legislative session and how I feel we need to be in more contact regionally with our state elected officials so that they fully understand that the decisions that we're voting on in Augusta, how that impacts you as a homeowner, me as a homeowner, our students, our families, because I think that's sometimes, it's hard. They get so busy, and then we get into budget season come February and March, and we need to stay connected in those pieces. And so there will be an hour session on homelessness and then an hour session with superintendents to talk about funding, some of the changing mandates that impact what we do in the classroom, or requirements that cities, schools, taxpayers have to deal with, talking about relationships, and then really talking about affordability and how that's conveyed. I think one of the things that I recently, in doing some data work, is that for all of you to know, is that 20% of the value of land, valuation in the state of Maine, resides in York County. So 20% of that, yet only 13% of any school funding comes to York County. And that's just an example of how those pieces then play on top of the much higher than average home values in that piece, and you start to see some of the imbalances or the lack of, shelters available for our communities. So we have a lot of work going on in those three areas right now, and that's only a highlight of a few things that we're focusing on. But I'm happy to take any questions that you have, whether it's about this or something else.
Any questions or comments? Councilor Berman?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Superintendent. I really appreciate you highlighting some of the changing demographics in our city, and some of those numbers are frankly a little bit shocking, some of the changes that we've seen. I guess I have a couple questions. With the increasing number of students generally and their different demographics in the coastal versus north side of town, are you going to need to reallocate neighborhoods and where they go for K-5 schooling over the short term, or can the current neighborhood designations to Young and Fairfield accommodate these changes? And are we still on track for the new school with the numbers we're seeing and the rates those are changing?
Yeah, so let me answer the new school question. If you remember correctly, we talked about how we were able to work with the state and build that for 1,100 students. So that was, again, a very big opportunity for us there. So again, anything can change, and 3 years down the line, things can certainly change. But there's a couple of factors. The amount of building that goes on. The other day I was by the Hillview Market going down Jenkins Road, and I looked to my left and I said, "Oh, that's a big development." But it's also safe to say that the governor's budget has a very big play in this too, because we know that our new neighbors, there's 80 some odd kids living in a hotel. So that can have a very big swing. And what I really worry about, Mike, is that if that does go away, that 1 year subsidy swing is going to be significant if those students are not replaced. And when I say replaced, I'm saying number for number, not anything else, just mathematically. I think that it's very much needs to be a consideration and a monitoring of over the next several years, whether we have to redraw some boundary lines for that K through 2 population. Now, some of that will have to do, Mike, on what the decisions that we're exploring around pre-K, because we know that we're at the end of that contract, and we have some options that we are working through so that all options are on the table for this board and the city council to consider. And then that decision probably will play out on things. If we weren't taking up school space, I think one of the things that we're lucky is that we do have a little bit of space based off the addition that we built at Young School that can absorb some of this. We've tried to be very protective of that space so that it's not deemed as someone's long-term classroom in case something changed with pre-K. But certainly we will have to revisit the numbers, because right now if you look at Young to Fairfield, there's quite a difference, and it's been quite a difference just over the last couple of years. We offered this fall, because of some higher class sizes at Young School, we offered families the ability to, like, if you've got daycare on this side of town, or if this works out because, you know, your in-law or your parents do daycare and that's easier. And we had a little bit of people take us up on that, not a ton. That is something that we would continue to do. Certainly daycare sometimes drives those pieces, but then again, a lot of our community relies on Parks and Recs to provide that aftercare, and that's a great program that we're lucky enough. And I know Ryan struggles with employees in space as well. So there's that piece. I do want to touch on something I didn't talk about with the growing population that I should have mentioned, is that some of you, or you've seen on our school committees, we did send out a survey around transportation, because transportation is a real challenge for us. And we're lucky enough that we were able to pick up a couple of bus drivers, and we are going to be talking about what some of our major solutions might be to solve some of these things. But what I can tell you is that we find ourselves, especially in North Saco, starting to travel to newer locations with more pickups, and then we're going up Route 1 much further than we used to in the past. And so some of those pieces are changing things, and we may have to, you know, look at a combination of things to change that. But population shifts through the city is definitely part of it. And, you know, when you look into, you know, if Kevin was here, Kevin would tell you that, you know, his neighborhood used to be a place where there are a ton of kids trick-or-treating and doing those things, and now those families are still in their houses and their kids are off on their own. And so that's kind of the piece that we do have going on in the city.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that insight. Just I guess one other question too. You talked about the changing needs of some of our students with increasing rates of poverty and a large increase in the ELL population. Is your current budget able to meet the needs of those students? And do we need to make any adjustments on our side in helping you support those kids?
Well, I don't think we need to yet, but there are some things that I talk with, because everything affects everything. There are some things where I thought we might have some funds so I could help support our new collaboration with Dawn to do a better job on facilities. And there are some facility things that we had planned. I feel like we're in pretty good shape until that October 1 enrollment, which doesn't become finalized until October 30th. And then we look at whether we qualify for any hardship funding from the state because of our ELL population growth. That will send me some things. But, you know, we also are seeing students who are coming in with major increased needs, which is a little bit of a challenge to gauge. Students who move into your community that are already in an out-of-district special ed placement are things that are, you can't anticipate that piece. There's a new law where schools are responsible for programming from 18 to 22 for special ed students. And we had kind of a surprise bill come in on that in the last week that was like, okay, where's that going to come from? So we've got a lot of things that are kind of, it's early in the year, and we hope to be able to manage them within the budget through certain things, but, there are certain other items that there could be a point in time where we come back and have a conversation. I think we're lucky, I reported out to the school committee, but, you know, we do have a significant fund balance on the school department side now that was kind of pegged for future capital pieces. But that is something that we could at least discuss.
Thank you. Really appreciate that.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Councilor Hewitt?
First, I want to thank the school board for your efforts on the new school. It was a Herculean effort, and I think it's wonderful that what you guys were able to accomplish. Next, where do we stand with Thornton Academy? I see they have not, you guys haven't reached a contract. Is there negotiation set up, and what's the timeline? Will we have those numbers in time for the next budget?
So I would hope so. We are in the middle of a negotiation process to sign a bridge contract because that needed to be extended because we were not meeting an agreement. And we have a group of city councilors, school committee members, and the public being part of those discussions to hopefully make sure that all pieces of the conversation are covered and that what we can present to everybody as the city and the school committee is something that we can live with.
Has there been any consideration since the previous committee couldn't come to a resolution of appointing new members to that committee?
Well, I don't think so, or at least from the school committee side. And sometimes resolutions are something that each party has to deal with, and it has to be something that we can prepare to send to you guys and to the school committee that is going to have a clear impact on the budget process that comes in this year. And so sometimes philosophies have to be discussed. And I think that's where we're at, is that certain philosophies have to be discussed.
All set? Great, thank you. Councilor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. Jeremy, how you doing?
Good.
I'm sitting here tonight listening to you because the last 4 years, even before I got on the council, I was trying to heighten the awareness that development will be having an impact on school population. And I'm looking tonight, and I think I see the evidence of that materializing. So a couple of points on that. First of all, can you explain to me and obviously the public, when you look at the increased enrollment at TA, how you
The voter line.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, Chief Clements is on top of it, so yeah, time to pick up pizza. Can you explain to me what efforts you undertake to vet these new students in terms of residency? Because I understand that's been a problem, and it kind of is a problem that bothers me a little bit as a representative of our taxpayers. And can you tell me briefly how you try to vet that? And more importantly, if you uncover a situation that you think is inappropriate, what do you actually do about that?
So the first is we look for two forms of proof of residency, and sometimes that can be a lease, sometimes that can be a bill. You know, many times, let's say that you're building a house in town, but like with any construction, that's not going to be done on September 1st. That may be done on October 30th. And in a case like that, we would kind of get a letter from the contractor and say, hey, this one makes some sense. Kind of the pieces that we look at is new students into the community. One of the challenges is that as an SAU pre-K through 8, we don't have a lot of information to student data. So, you know, if a kid in our 7th grade was to move to a different community, teachers tend to pick up signs and know about things, and then sometimes, you know, we're working on the pre-K through 8 all the time too, because people move. We've also started to look at sales, property sales in the city of Saco, and trying to go back over the last several years of how we could bring those, like which homes have been sold, and are there duplicate addresses? That's something that we're doing now in this office. So, you know, if Mike Berman with 2 kids and Phil with 2 kids, you know, had the same address, that may be just a situation that Phil sold the house and, you know, I might not know about it. That's a pretty tough job for our school department to try to stay on top of. You know, and I think also looking at why people and reasons people enroll in schools and you kind of work on things. Jen in our office does a really nice job working on those pieces. And so we go through a process. If somebody is not living where they're supposed to, we address that issue. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer than others to have those conversations and to make sure that people are living where they're living. And, you know, again, just kind of a different situation in a structure like we have today, because there is definitely a responsibility to the taxpayer that's a little bit different than in other communities.
Yeah. Thank you. And that obviously is my concern as well as in my role here on the council. And then if we get back to the growth in enrollments, as I was thinking years ago about student population increases with development, now I'm beginning to believe that this brand spanking new school we're going to have, which I'm very proud of, is going to be potentially the envy of the state. It's going to be a state-of-the-art school. You built in extra capacity, so kudos to you on that. But as I sit as liaison to the planning board and I see literally hundreds of new units of various types coming before the planning board on a fairly regularly scheduled basis, I begin to wonder about who's going to fill those units, and the school itself may, like we feel TA is an attraction, I actually think that the school that we're going to build is also, we've got great staff, great teachers, academically great system, but you throw a beautiful new building on top of that, and all of a sudden I think we become very, very appealing. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that we as a council, when we debate, and hopefully soon, some type of housing policy and how we want the city to evolve, that all of these things will take into consideration.
Well, I think that, you know, Phil, I just, you know, as a response to that piece is that while we have all of those wonderful educational things within inside the walls, people do, when shopping for homes, drive by the local schools. And in 3.5, knock on wood, years, when you drive into Saco and see 2 brand-new state-of-the-art schools, and then when we turn our eye to the November 5th election in surrounding communities who, again, will be going out to bond for projects in the $70 to $120 million range of local tax. I mean, think about what that's going to add to a mill rate. You very quickly start to think about, will they ever get over the finish line in some of those places? And we're on that path to it. And so, yes, I think that's 100% has to be a consideration of the council and the city and all of that, to think about, hey, we're going to drive up and, you know, I'm going to be thinking about a house in Saco, and I'm going to drive up to this wonderful brand-new elementary school, and then I'm going to say, you mean both of my kids are going to be in the same location on the same bus? It's going to be pretty attractive for a family.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Questions, comments?
Your Honor, if I might, once we're done with this particular portion, I'd like to have a couple minutes to have Don Roth come up and talk about the merger of the facilities, because I think it's very important for everybody to understand that, given that just a few months ago we brought it up here in the room with a meeting with the school board, and so that I think I'd like to be able to have Don come up and give a little bit of a briefing on that.
So any final questions or comments before we bring Don up? Nope. Don?
Evening, everybody. Few faces I haven't met before. So I'm Don Roth, Facilities Director. Just giving you a few brief highlights of what's going on. Been working with Jeremy and his staff, kind of learning the schools. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of buildings, a lot of things that have to happen. We have been meeting, I have been meeting with the principals of the schools. One of the things that when I came on with the city as a facilities manager at the time was I didn't want my police chief worried about changing his front door on the building. I didn't want the fire chief worrying about the roof of his building. I don't want the principals of the schools worrying about having to shovel their front porch and their front yard when we're getting snowstorms. I also don't want them to worry about safety issues in the buildings as well. So we're starting to kind of get together on a collaboration with this and kind of reach out a little bit, see where we can help them. I've literally sat down one-on-one. Today was his first day. We have hired a deputy director that's working with me. We're not breaking out like we had, a few people had asked, with a director and a deputy director, and the deputy takes care of the city and the deputy takes care of the schools. We're doing this as a collaboration, as a group. I want to support him. I want him to support me. We spend a lot of time, even in this, not a large city, but we spend a lot of time on the road bouncing between buildings, putting out fires, sometimes literally, in between everywhere. So there's a lot that happens on a day-to-day basis that we need to cover. We got kind of created a little bit of a hole somewhere else. Andrew Saxa is going to be my deputy, who was one of the garage foremen up at Public Works. He originally comes from Scarborough, has a lot of history in facilities and materials and buildings, and he's very, very great working on systems and computers, which we are doing a lot of new systems within the town. We will have a whole lot of systems with the new school coming up. So one of the things that I think Jeremy has reached out to me right from the start, as well as everybody here, is we need to have this group together within the next 3 or 4 years, so when the school opens up, we're ready for it. We're not coming in with a whole new group. Some of that is not just the systems, but the design of the school, as well as what's going in the schools. I have my first meeting with storage, I believe, tomorrow on some of the schools to sit down. I'm going to be the guy saying we need more, because we use a lot of space within the city. We have storage. If anybody remembers the show MASH, I'm the radar guy that's got stuff stashed at every building and every corner of every building. We obviously need that. The group that I want to get together, we need to keep the schools, city buildings, everything needs to be clean, needs to be safe. We have projects going right now in the city. We've done recently the clock tower. We're finally finishing up the police chief's new workout area downstairs, where we had to take out the whole shooting range, which became lead abatement and everything else. So it was a big job that we're coming to the close finally on that. We've got a lot of other projects going on between just trying to get new carpeting and flooring, and it sounds like that's a very light issue to do, but when you do it around people working and moving desks and printers and photocopiers and all of their equipment, it becomes an all-day affair and a little bit more. We're also working with a lot of the new products that Jeremy talked about within the city. We tried a brand new product originally a couple years ago for the PD. We're using a product called Kinetics, which is a carpet tile, which is actually, each square has 27 recycled water bottles in it. It has a rubber membrane backing that doesn't allow anything to go through. It also doesn't allow moisture to come up through, which is another issue that we've had throughout our building. So we are dealing with a lot of the technology as well with some of this. The other good part of Kinetics is you don't have to worry about fragrance policies because it gets cleaned with just hot water. There is no product that you need for it. So steam and water does a wonderful job on it. The schools, right now, we're just starting to kind of get involved with them with the janitorial staff a little bit, starting to try to help them out in ways we can to make sure we're getting the buildings back to where they need to be. Again, we talked about snow removal. I've got staff now that have a lot of experience. I've reached out to Jeremy about, again, with the money part, possibly we need another truck so that we can have that equipment for the people that we have. We still take care of multiple buildings during snow removal. I'm that guy hoping we don't have a whole lot of snowstorms, but sooner or later it's going to hit again, so we got to be ready for it. And those are days that we need to plan on working just that. We have not a lot of safety issues, but I walk through and see a lot of them everywhere. Ones we got to address right away, so we're starting to work on those. Our alarm systems in a lot of our buildings, we've done quite a bit of newer in the city, but we haven't in the schools. So we have systems that are not up to snuff right now that we really need to jump on board, because even our schools that we know we're not going to be around in the next 3 to 4 years, we still need to take care of them, and we need to keep the kids safe while they're in there and make sure the buildings are still there. And then we have a few security issues that we are starting a new program, and I know I have a meeting this week at middle school dealing with some of the security issues that we have and working on the new stuff. On top of all of this, we do have a new building going in right on the verge up at middle school for storage and a facilities building that's been on the books for a while that we'll be getting started real soon, and then a bunch of other smaller projects that I'm involved with the school, kind of coming in after the fact and catching up on a little bit. So that's a little roundabout of what's going on right now. So any questions or anything, I'm more than happy to.
Questions or comments for Councilor Johnston?
Just a quick statement, which is, I mean, this is long overdue, as I've routinely said, and I just wanted to thank you for actually being willing to take on this role, because it clearly is a lot of work.
So far, so good.
So just thank you for that, and all your staff members.
And I would like to just mention that Don has jumped in with both feet, and I also want to thank Jeremy for his availability to help Don. So I think that transition has worked well with the help of the superintendent.
Great. I do have one quick question on one school that we know that's staying around is Saco Middle, and we've done a ton of projects over the last 2.5 years. What do we have coming up?
That's one of the places that we do have the new storage building is going up there in an existing place where we had just small sheds before, so it is a permanent building. We also have a very large generator that we're just waiting on that's already got the concrete in the ground. It'll be strong enough to do the entire school, so we will have that generator. I believe it should be here early, sometime next summer. The groundwork is done, the concrete is in, the pylons are in. It's just a matter of waiting for the generator now to come in. We still have some other inside work. We have a new wall going in that'll create a better security barrier coming in through the front door. It's going to direct everybody more in instead of giving them that area to get around everywhere. Even little stuff we've done, we're finding that, not to Jeremy's fault or anybody else's fault, like I took a couple of nights and came down and drove around schools and they're pitch dark in the back. So one of our electrician team went up the other day and we replaced the lights on the back of middle school, and I actually got a call from one of the kitchen staff this morning saying, "Oh my God, thank you, we didn't come in the pitch dark." Unfortunately, I was at Burns School all day yesterday due to an electrical issue that a squirrel met its demise, and it also made a very large demise on the building. We lost our sprinkler system, we lost a cooler and a freezer. We spent the day working over there. We got everything back up. Kids had school today. We didn't have a lot of loss of money other than one technician being there all day. But we just had a lot of that kind of stuff that's still going on, so.
Good, good.
But to Jody, to answer your question about like the running list of things at the middle school, one, we need to, over the next several years, and that's why I'm hoping that that fund balance can continue to grow, is addressing, there's still a portable out there, and that needs to be a structure that is permanent, and we need to look at that piece. So that's number one. Number two, we still, at Saco Middle School, have something that's called the H-Wing, where many of our special education courses are taught, and our students must be integrated into the rest of the school, and we need to change that practice. That practice, part of the solution is building that other space that's permanent so that we can then shuffle things around. Number three, flooring. The flooring in that school is, it's actually probably been a really good product long-term. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's still fairly original, but it's I want to say linoleum type, but
It's like a VCT
it's like a,
almost. Yeah.
yeah, but it's starting to fray and rip in places, and that's an issue. Still have some heating and ventilation pieces that we didn't do through revolving renovations, and then obviously looking at windows and doors and those types of things on more of a regular basis. We have caught up major over the last several years, and the building looks really nice. We just need to continue to look at that funding over the next couple of years until we can transition that payment off the books as we come up with the payment for the bond piece, so that there's a little bit of a, variation there, then while still addressing it. I think one of the things that people would underestimate is the building that we're building for facilities. Because not only will we have a proper workspace for people to handle some of our in-house fixes instead of contracting everything else, but just a time and efficiency to do more, or being able to do stuff on site. That's a major issue, instead of, running to the store 3 or 4 times a week just to pick up something when you can have it there. So those are a lot of the things that we're doing at that school. And then I still think that the other issue that we've got to still think about is, once the interstate exchange opens, looking at if there is any other way to do something with a drop-off at Saco Middle School, because we've done all, and the police, and Jack and his crew, we've done everything we're going to do without changing the loop. There's really no way to get cars in there any differently and get them out, and buses. You've got to think of a different additional solution if that's going to be a long-term piece for us.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Anyone else? Okay. Any questions from the school board for the council? Nope. Okay, I guess that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Okay, that now takes us to the call to order for the City of Saco Council meeting for Monday, October 21st, 2024. Let the record reflect, meeting starting at 7:13. Notice of all councilors' presence with the exception of Councilor Archer, who has been excused, and City Administrator Bahenko. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, everyone. Okay, that now takes us to item number 4, and that is committee correspondence to council. Any councilors, members wishing to speak? Councilor Berman?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. The Shoreline Commission met last week. I see some members are present and perhaps will speak for themselves during the public comment period. But nevertheless, they had a number of questions about preparation for the winter storm season that have already been forwarded to Public Works and the city administrator. I just wanted to read them here into the record for the public's awareness. As some may know, there's been a change in plan, and North Avenue will not be covered in sand this winter. But the Shoreline Commission was asking about other measures that could be put in place to protect North Ave and especially the corner. That includes whether some combination of Jersey barriers and sandbags can be placed on the road to protect it, and whether the city has some right-of-way on the beach side of that road where perhaps some armor stone could be placed, maybe even under the sand, again, to prevent the road from washing away this year. There's also a plan in place to place sandbags on some of the walkways and roadways that head to the beach to prevent the storm surge from coming over onto our roadways and walkways and into yards, houses, and beaches. There were many questions about the details of those sandbag placements, where they'll be placed, when they'll be placed, along the beach, on paved parts, and how that will work. There was also some questions about our long-term beach management plan. And while the commission was very much in favor of working with York County on a regional approach, the scope of work of that plan is starting to come into focus, and wondering if the city's specific version of a beach management plan, avoiding overlap with that York County plan, could run simultaneously as opposed to waiting for the York County process to finish and doing them sequentially. So I understand that Public Works and the city administrator are working on that, but I wanted the public to be aware of those questions.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone wishing to be recognized. Item number 5 this evening, there is no general. Item number 6 is public comment. If there are any members of the public wishing to speak, please step forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor McPhail, Council, City Municipal Henko. I'm David Plavin. I live at 36 Lower Beach Road in Saco. I'm also the chairman of the Shoreline Commission and vice president of Save Our Shore Saco Bay. I'm here tonight, though, to speak in support of the Climate Adaptation and Action Plan that's going to be voted on tonight. I'm very much in favor of it. It's an outstanding piece of work that a lot of people deserve credit for. And I think, you know, climate plans generally are things that set goals and targets for 10, 25, 50 years from now. And this one is a little different because I see a lot of near-term and high-priority action associated with it. And I think that I look at Biddeford, and Biddeford, after they introduced their climate plan, formed a sustainability committee. Kittery, after it passed its plan, was able to get a grant to do action from that plan. And I think that we need to, I'm asking the council not only adopt the plan, but adopt an action plan to look at high priority action items and bring them forward and act on them. We all know that climate change is affecting us greatly. Just look at the coast or any flood prone area in the city. And what we've seen the last couple of years is devastating in some respects. So also, I think the beach management plan, which Mike just mentioned, is mentioned in the climate plan, and I think that's one action item that can be taken up immediately if acted upon. So I want to thank the city planner, Emily Cole Prescott, Shannon Chisholm, numerous members of the city staff that worked on this, and the Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission, who has put together a document called Climate Ready Coast, which I think everybody should take a look at because there are a lot of good ideas in there that should be considered and hopefully adopted. So thank you, and I look forward to its passage and look forward to a plan of action. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kelly Archer, 185 Bradley Street. This is an under new business item I'd like to talk about. Tonight, I recognize that proposed commercial solar electric fees, a new business item, is on the agenda. However, for your future consideration of solar, be it fees, equitable, or compliance, I would like you to consider these solar concerns beyond the fees tonight regarding residential small-scale energy facilities ordinance passed in October 2022 versus the commercial solar energy ordinance passed in July 2023. Do we have a fee structure, a standard fee for residential? How are per panels being calculated? Are commercial applicants paying more than residential applicants? As far as being equitable, a 2020 project, Revision Energy's 712 solar panels, was charged $5,070 at $7.12 per panel. Blue Wave staff recommendation today is $4 per panel, a potential $55,000 plus electrical permit fee. Why the difference? Is it roof versus ground install, staff fees? What is the breakdown? And what is the consistency? As far as compliant, what Saco solar projects pre-October 2022 and July 2023 for commercial are in compliance with the current ordinance 237-2022, especially B4, which states any modification, upgrade, or structural change that materially alters the size, placement, or output of an existing commercial solar energy system shall comply with this section. The key words are existing and shall comply. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Kelly. Anyone else wishing to speak, please step forward.
Hi, good evening. Inga Brown, 161 Simpson Road. I did want to just say I really did find the information packet from Superintendent Ray quite interesting. And on page 5, really the information about the economic hardship that we're seeing with our families, food insecurity, the clothing needs. Families are struggling to cover rent, utilities, and other housing-related expenses. It certainly is at the forefront, I think, of a lot of teachers' minds, and I can say at the high school level that is also a significant concern. And I know that at TA we are aware of this, and I want to just say as a teacher, I'm doing all that I can to raise some of these items up for review. And I do think there are other things we can be doing at the school level to help our families. Not that we're already not doing a lot, but I do think there are some other programs and things we can look at, and maybe there'll be more discussion about that coming up. I'm also talking about the new business item related to the commercial solar energy system fee. One thing that I would ask, the electrical permit, I have an older one from 2020, and on that permit, it does say wind/solar excludes service size. It's $50 for the first panel and $7 for each additional panel. So I too just have questions about the fee structure. I think one thing that I'm grappling with is, as far as the Blue Wave project goes, if it's $4 per panel for 13,776 panels, the more panels you have, then it's more staff time, more review time, and then, of course, that fee would increase as well. So I'm just wondering about, is there a proportionate fee for the first 1,000 panels, or is it really just a per panel fee? Seems like there's a lot of questions there. That's it for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Inga. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, not seeing anyone seeking recognition. Moving on to item 7, that is the approval of the minutes. We have item A, which is the agenda minutes for September 23rd, 2024, and and item B for the agenda minutes, October 7th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved?
Motion made by Counselor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Hewitt. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, not seeing any. Roll call vote. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Abstain.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0 with 1 abstention. Okay, that takes us to item 8, and that is the consent items this evening. We have 4 items. Item A is the notice of election for the general and referendum election, November 5th, 2024. Item B is to confirm the mayor's appointments to the Arts Commission, Laura Sproat, Jason Trull, and Rachel Somerville. Item C is to confirm the mayor's appointment to the Shoreline Commission of Sarah Petrin. And item D is the confirmation of the mayor's appointment to the Lucia Kimball Deering Trust, Veronica McGovern-Sheehan. Is there a motion to approve the consent items?
So moved.
Motion made by Counselor Berman. Any discussion on any of the items? Counselor Johnston?
I ask that we pull item A and D.
I'm sorry, A and D?
Yes, please.
Okay, Counselor Johnson is asked to move items A and D from the consent, move to the action. Is there a motion for, is there a second?
A second?
Counselor Hatch? Any other discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Okay, now takes us to the action items. Item A, which was originally consent item, now moves to item A for action. And that is the notice of elections. And that is Counselor Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Notice of election is being submitted to the mayor and council to authorize the general and referendum election scheduled for Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. The clerk, as required by Title 21A, Article 622-A, has prepared the notice of election, which will be posted in all wards on or before October 29th, 2024. Be it ordered that the City Council approve the notice of election for the general and referendum election scheduled for Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. I move to approve the order.
Motion had been made by Counselor Johnston. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Counselor Hatch. Any discussion? Counselor Johnston?
Thank you. Yeah, no, I just, being consistent here, I generally pull these when they're in consent because I think it's important that we, again, notify the public that there's an election on November 5th, but likewise, you also can presently vote, I believe, right up here during the day, during normal business hours. Additionally, the notice or the place of polling is Thornton Academy, correct? I believe. And that's 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Election Day. That is all.
Okay, anybody else? Roll call vote. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Okay, item D from the consent items is now item B for the action items, and that is the confirmation of the mayor's appointment to the Lucia Deering Kimball Trust of Veronica McGovern-Sheehan. That is... Counselor Johnston.
Thank you. City of Saco, by special election held on the second Monday of September 1917, as authorized by Chapter 95 of the Private and Special Laws of the State of Maine, the year 1917, having voted to accept the legacies and bequests of Lucia Kimball Deering as provided in the last will and testament of said Lucia Kimball Deering, dated November 19th, 1915, said legacies and bequests, devices, and gifts which the City of Saco, Maine is or may be authorized to accept under the provisions of said Chapter 95 of the Private and Special Laws of the State of Maine of the year 1917 are hereby placed in the care, custody, and under the administration of 7 citizens of the City of Saco, who shall constitute a Board of Trustees for the care, custody, and administration of these funds, and the income thereof, and to be designated as the Board of Trustees for the care, custody, and administration of the legacies and bequests provided for under the terms of the will of Lucia Kimball Deering, and all other legacies, bequests, devices, or gifts to be said to the said City of Saco for hospital purposes. Members shall be appointed by the mayor with the City Council confirmation for a term of 6 years, beginning as each current member in 2009 on file with the city clerk concludes their lifetime term, initially with 2 members being appointed for 6 years, 2 members being appointed for 4 years, and 3 members being appointed for 2 years. Vacancies that occur in the Board of Trustees by death, resignation, or removal from the City of Saco, or by failure to qualify as provided in Chapter 15-12, shall be filled in the same manner. Be it ordered that the City Council confirm the mayor's appointment of Veronica McGovern Sheehan to the Lucia Kimball Deering Trust Board for a 6-year term ending on October 21, 2030. Move to approve the order.
Motion has been made by Counselor Johnston. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Gunn. Any discussion? Counselor Johnston?
Thank you. So I've been wrestling with this the entire time we've been in these chambers. But I do want to make note that this vacancy has existed for 4 years since Mr. Warren passed away during 2020. And I've expressed this vacancy several times over those 4 years. So I do want to commend the mayor's efforts towards filling this position or this vacancy now. However, like I said, I'm working this out in my mind as I speak. I've had, I guess what I would say, I got a timer up there? Were you timing me? Don't do that. Long-standing legal questions in regards to what the role present day is of what we're calling the Kimball Deering Trust. I've never formally brought those before council. I've certainly had those conversations with past administrators, mayors. And I guess, as I thought about this appointment, I was challenged with how I go about, fulfilling my role and improving a person. The individual, I do not know. I'm sure they're, more than qualified to fill that role, but myself, not really knowing present day what is expected of that individual or really this body overall, given, again, I won't go into the details of it, but just past history of it. And so initially I think I had considered, or perhaps I still am, a tabling motion on this until we can get a legal opinion from outside counsel on the matter. Part of me feels like I don't necessarily want to hold up an appointment based on that alone, but I guess I'm kind of throwing that out to the rest of you to at least express that I will be following whatever comes of this appointment up with several questions that I would like, again, outside legal counsel to address as we move forward. I just think these questions need to be resolved. So I guess I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnston. That topic has actually been brought up. City Administrator Mahenko is going to do some additional research. When I first came on council, I had done some research. What I came to the conclusion at that point with that is that the city's only duty is to appoint the commission, and then the commission. But again, like you said, I think we've been so far removed from them that we don't really know the whole concept of what is going on and what the responsibilities and duties.
Yeah, I would just, again, I have a lengthy history with this myself, and
Yep.
I would like that opportunity.
So it actually is,
to
it's kind of on the top of the mind right now.
express the concerns that I have and give the information I have. And I know this is also equally important to members of the public, but my concerns originate long before any concerns from the public. It literally dates back 5-6 years. So I just, again, letting council know that I will be pursuing that. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Counselor Gunn?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On that subject, while I'm not sure what the structure would be or even the matter of conversation, I think as a bare minimum, it would be nice to have at least the trust, members of the trust in front of the council at least once a year, just if anything, just to have that level of interaction that we don't have. After all, we do entrust these people with overseeing a trust that's over a century old, and honestly, I know I've been on the council for almost 5 years, and sometimes I will interact with someone who I didn't even know until after the fact was a member of the trust. So I think just to have that visibility, regardless of what we actually talk about, I think it would be prudent going forward. So just as a first idea going into this discussion, I know that Councilor Johnston will probably continue with, to be more proactive about it. I think, yeah, it's something that should change, at least for the optics going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Counselor Hatch?
Yes, I'd like to jump on this bandwagon as well, but I know Ms. Sheehan quite well, and I do think that she's offered a lot to our community, and so my comments have nothing to do with her qualifications for this role, but I do agree that we're in this vacuum. We really don't have a full understanding, at least I don't, of how the interaction between the trust and the city is supposed to operate. We have witnessed, Nate's experience goes back a lot further than mine, but even in my short tenure, I've noticed some transactions that have occurred that are, you just look at them and you question. I'm not suggesting that they're wrong, but they're sometimes hard to understand the underlying variables of these transactions. So I'm comfortable making the appointment, but I would want to go on record as supporting some type of follow-up discussion and ask the city administrator to continue his path that he's already suggested, and that we deal with this not in the not too distant future, that we give staff enough time to pull data together and maybe a workshop or whatever you deem appropriate, Mayor McPhail. So I just wanted to be supportive of that effort. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, roll call vote. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Okay, that now takes us to item A, original item A, which is now item C, and that is the ratification of Emily Cole Prescott as acting city manager, as city administrator, and that is Counselor Berman.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Section 3.03 of the city charter allows the city council to designate an acting city administrator when the city administrator is absent. The city administrator requests that the city council appoint Emily Cole Prescott as acting city administrator in his absence. Director Prescott has 6 years of service with the city of Saco and more than a decade of local government experience. Director Prescott has also obtained her American Institute of Certified Planners certification and has a master's degree in public administration. Be it ordered that the City Council ratify Emily Cole Prescott as acting city administrator of the city of Saco, effective October 21st, 2024. I move to approve the order.
Motion has been made by Counselor Berman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Johnston. Any discussion? Counselor Johnston?
Thank you. Yeah, I think that, Director Cole Prescott has performed her duties very well to the city of Saco over the last 6 years, I think, 6 years. And I think she would continue to serve council and the city, very well going forward in this new role. So she fully support it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Counselor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. I just want to join on that bandwagon. This appointment is very appropriate, and I'm happy that I'm going to be able to support it this evening. So I think we have a very good selection here. So thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Roll call vote. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Congratulations, Emily. Okay, that now takes us to original item B, which is now item D, and that is an amendment to the fiscal year 2025 approved budget for the Ask Foundation. That's Counselor Hewitt.
I would like to put forward an amendment to the approved budget that adds $5,000 to the Ask Foundation Aid for Saco Kids in the supported entities budget allocation. Be it ordered that the City Council add the Ask Foundation to the supported entities in the amount of $5,000.
Motion has been made by Counselor Hewitt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Berman. Any discussion? Counselor Berman?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm highly supportive of this request. I think that the need for this foundation is clear. We heard from the superintendent earlier about the number of students we have who, while not meeting the federal poverty guidelines, are not within the realm of having their basic needs met in our schools, as well as the number of homeless kids. The Ask Foundation attempts to help both of those things, providing clothing, backpacks, supplies, food, and all of those, and I think it's very appropriate. I also just want to recognize the Ask Foundation. People may know that I was involved in early efforts in Saco STEAM and the Saco Educational Foundation. Those efforts have now ceased, and the remaining funds were put towards the Ask Foundation in the Saco School District. So I think this is the appropriate way for these kinds of efforts to move forward in the future. I do think $5,000 is also a very reasonable ask for the city's support. I would encourage council at some point in the future to think about the idea, though, of how much public support we should be giving educational foundations. One of the benefits of educational foundations is that they have independent funding separate from the taxpayer. And so as there's increasing levels of public support, it does kind of put a little pressure on that distinction you usually see between private educational foundations and the publicly supported school budget. I don't think $5,000 is anywhere near that limit. I think it's a very appropriate ask, and I'm very supportive. I just wanted to raise that as an issue to be considered in the future.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing any. Roll call vote. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Okay, that now takes us to original item C, which is now item E. And actually, this is the quarter one fiscal year 2025 fiscal reporting. There is no action on this item. There is a memo in your packet with the reporting. If there are any questions regarding this, we do have Director Methuen here. Any questions from the council on it? Councilor Johnston.
I have questions. I don't know if they're necessarily specific to the finance director, though. I noticed that we're at 45% of the budgeted appropriations for general assistance.
Jerry, you want to come on up?
We're only 4 months into the year, so is that a trend, or is
So we haven't received any reimbursements yet from the state. So that shows higher, but by next quarter, once those payments start coming in, it'll be more back on track.
is there an increase in use of general assistance?
No, it's just none of the reimbursements have come in yet.
All right. The only other question I had was under the revenues. There's, let's see if I can find it, stated miscellaneous, other revenues. It looks to be $207,000, which is great. I just was curious where it came from.
I will have to look into that
Okay.
and get back to you.
And yeah, that's it for now. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you. Again, there is no action on this, it's just a report. Okay, so moving on to original item D, which is now item F, And that is one reading of the Climate Adaptation and Action Plan, and that is Counselor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. In September 2020, the City Council passed a student-led initiative resolution endorsing the declaration of a climate emergency and emergency mobilization effort to restore a safe climate. As a result of this resolution in 2022, the Energy and Sustainability Committee spearheaded SACO's enrollment in Maine's Community Resilience Partnership. Because of this enrollment and the successful application, SACO was awarded a community action grant to complete its first climate adaptation and action plan. The timing of this initiative fit well within the regional context as Biddeford, Kennebunkport, and other coastal communities completed their climate planning work. Additionally, SACO's Water Resource Recovery Team continued its involvement with the Maine Climate Council. On a parallel path, SACO's planning team collaborated on the Climate Ready Coast, a grant-funded initiative that explored climate vulnerabilities among 10 Maine municipalities. Both initiatives helped inform this climate plan. This plan is a culmination of 2 years of planning and community engagement. The plan has been community-informed every step of the way and includes greenhouse gas emissions inventory, vulnerability assessment, regional perspectives, community-informed climate actions, and implementation strategies. While there is much work to be done to implement the items outlined in this plan, this is a critical step for SACO's future. The City Council is now asked to formally adopt this plan. I move to adopt SACO's first climate adaptation and action plan.
Motion has been made by Counselor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Berman. Any discussion? Counselor Berman, then Counselor Hatch.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So first, I really appreciate the history and pointing back to 2020 and the student-led declaration of climate emergency. I think that's exactly right. This effort was called for by the students and the citizens of SACO. I also took the time over the weekend to read the entire plan, and any citizens who haven't ought to. That this is really, really good work. Looking at the maps and the figures and the timetable and the scope of the issue, it's not startling because we've been aware of it for a while, but it's very illuminating, and the urgency and the need is made really plain in those pages. This is a really well-done plan, and kudos to all those who worked on it. I think it's really important, and I want to recognize that, and documenting what's happening, what's going to happen, and what needs to be done in such a clear and well-written formats, I think is incredibly useful. The only piece that I was left thinking about as I read the plan is that it divides its action items into near-term, mid-term, and long-term. And I would just remind us that it's a huge milestone to adopt SACO's first climate adaptation action plan today, but today is probably too late, right? Some of the effects of climate change are already upon us, and as you read through the plan and look through the pictures and see the flood maps and the pictures that Andrew put in of water rising over the breakwaters and hitting houses and structures, we should be reminded that it's here and that it's now. And hopefully some of those medium and long-term action items cannot be too far into the long term. I don't know that we have the time to wait. So kudos on the plan. Hopefully we can get it done, and hopefully we can get it done sooner rather than later.
Thank you. Counselor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. I also want to echo Councilor Berman's sentiments here. And I'm the liaison to the Energy and Sustainability Committee, and I have been since I've been on the council. This is the culmination of a significant amount of hard work driven by staff and citizens. And if you haven't read the report, read it. I read it. I'm going to have to read it again because there's just so much in there that's important to us. And I think that you're going to see some of this stuff work its way into some of our budget discussions. So when we get to talk about budgets and monies to be spent, and you want to make an informed judgment about the council's views on budgeting monies, if you go to page 131 of that report, there are 4 bullet points that talk about projects in motion that will have likely have some type of budget impact. We heard Don Roth mention the flooring at the police department. You know, you think that's a simple switch, but there was a message behind that. The use of the material that he talked about fits into this context. So I hope that everybody reads this at least once and understands what we're trying to do, because it's very, very important. And my last hope is that those SMS students that came before the council, I hope they realize that their efforts culminated in a very effective and tangible result. And so I don't know how we could ever reach back to them and thank them, but I think that might be worth an effort. So kudos to everybody who worked on this, and now we have to put it into action.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Yeah, likewise, that's really my initial thoughts on this was, those students that I guess would be sophomores or juniors at Thornton today that really, I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened, but they certainly effectuated the change, which I think that alone was pretty cool to witness, Too bad they're not here this evening, but I've read it too. I've read it 1.5 times. There's a lot of data there, and it is a lot to take in, and God knows I love a plan, so I appreciate all the work that went into it. I do think there's a lot of key data that we can really use going forward. I will say though, having said that, I did find areas, like in most things, whether it's comp plan or others, where the stated goals conflict with the local data, and obviously that's where we'll come into play, and others to determine how we actually effectuate this plan going forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Roll call vote. Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Okay, that now takes us to previously item E, which is now item G, and that is a first reading. Petition for zoning text amendment filed by Cosmic Solutions LLC, represented by Cohen Law, Maine, to add adult use marijuana manufacturing to the Industrial I zoning district pursuant to Title 28-B Cannabis Legalization Act, and that is Councilor Gunn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Cosmic Solutions LLC, represented by Cohen Law, Maine, has filed the enclosed pension for a zoning text amendment to add the use, quote, adult use marijuana manufacturing to the industrial zone pursuant to Title 28B Cannabis Legislation Act. This request is for the City of Saco to, quote, opt in only for adult use cannabis manufacturing. I move to approve the first reading of the ordinance text amendment pension filed by Cosmic Solutions LLC, and further to schedule the public hearing for November 4th, 2024.
Motion has been made by Councilor Gunn. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Councilor Hatch. Any discussion? Councilor Berman?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm curious to see how this moves through the public hearing and final reading. My sense on cannabis is kind of threefold right now. I appreciate that this is only to change the manufacturing and not the retail sales or consumption. I think that's maybe wise and appropriate. As with all things cannabis, I think there's a role for it in our states, and I think Saco wants to opt into some of it, but I think we need to be cautious about how we move forward. That being said, my understanding, and I toured one of the production facilities in Saco shortly after I became city councilor and had the opportunity to ask a lot of questions, is there's really no difference in the manufacturing or growing process between the recreational and the medical side. And so, in fact, that this would likely be a distinction with no difference. By opting in to this language change, no activities would change that one could observe in our industrial parks or in the growers, which leads me kind of to my third partial concern, which is the proportion of our industrial and warehouse space that's been taken up by cannabis and whether that's a healthy balance. We want those properties filled, but I do think we want to encourage some sort of balance. So my initial inclination is that this doesn't actually create any meaningful change, with the caveat that the opt-in is only for manufacturing and that it doesn't meaningfully shift the proportion of our industrial space that's going to cannabis-type businesses.
We do have Director Prescott here if any answers tonight, or just for her to have note going forward.
I think that's just a note to going forward, unless she has any insight that she wanted to share about any of those issues.
All set. Okay, great, thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Yeah, again, likewise, for me, you know, I mean, I think we all probably have our own personal opinions with the subject of cannabis, but for me, specific is, you know, what does this change bring about to the rest of the I zone? And so when I first heard about this, I had, again, similar concerns about, you know, personal opinion, I feel we already have a high concentration of this use in that zone, and it should be, you know, more diverse. But if I'm understanding this correctly, and again, I don't necessarily need an answer to it, I think I'm understanding it correctly, and I'll leave staff to correct me if I'm wrong, but the way this has been presented really will not do what I envisioned, which was expanding the use. It's only allowing current medical facilities to expand. So whereas before I was thinking, okay, you have two defined use thanks to a state law that, you know, has convoluted it all, and moving forward with allowing this adult use or recreational use manufacturing would have then opened up even more opportunity to, you know, fill these spots. But based upon the language, it seems as though existing facilities that are already medical manufacturers would remain and be given this additional use, which in essence is the same thing. It's just growing marijuana, which I think solves my concern that, you know, you would, even though the uses are the same, depending on how you wanted to operate your business, you know, moving forward with the two uses independently, you would have had more availability of space to be filled up in the industrial park. So I guess what I'm saying is, as proposed, I think I'm supportive of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing any. Roll call vote. Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0, so this will be back on November 4th, 2024. Okay, that now takes us to previous item F, which is now item H, which is one reading, grant acceptance of the 2024 Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant, and that is Councilor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. The City of Saco Police Department has been awarded funding in an amount up to $10,373 through the U.S. Department of Justice's 2024 Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant. The police department would like to utilize the funding for the purchase of 2 new digital cameras that will replace the current outdated cameras. The cameras are used for accident and crime scene photography. The cost of the cameras and associated equipment is $10,146. The city will not incur any additional costs. I move to approve the acceptance of the 2024 Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant, and further move to authorize the city administrator to sign the certifications and assurances by the chief executive of the applicant government on behalf of the city of Saukar.
Motion has been made by Counselor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Hewitt. Any discussion on the item? Okay, not seeing any. Roll call vote. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Okay, that completes the action items for this evening. Item number 10, new business. We do have 2 items. The first is the proposed commercial solar electric fee. And you will find that you have a memo in your packet regarding the fee changing to $4. City Administrator Mahenko?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just as council will recall, when this came up before, the council indicated that we should continue at this point to charge the $7 per panel, which we did, but also asked for the number of hours that was involved in the inspections. The project consisted of 13,776 solar panels. It took 562 hours for the inspections. With the cost of the inspections along with staff time and overhead, the Code Office recommends that the fee of $4 per solar panel be adopted as an equitable and reasonable fee. I would ask that Director Toomey come up and speak to this issue. As I've indicated in the past, we have to be careful on how much we provide as a fee and be able to justify it. And so I asked the director to go and get this information to report back to the council.
Thank you. Welcome, Director Toomey.
Good evening. So basically, $4 per panel for that would be $55,104. And with 562 hours with time and everything else, it came out close to that, so that we could justify that. You go more, it gets a little tough. You go less, it'd be we putting more hours than it's worth. On the smaller ones, it takes, like one panel, if it took me an hour, it doesn't take me 13,000 hours to do 13. You can do more panels quicker the more you have. So that's why 7 for the smaller ones is more reasonable, 4 for the larger ones. I mean, if we did a sliding scale on everything, it'd be hard, we'd have the fee scale to be so long for everybody's different. No 2 projects are identical. Average on a house is 40 panels. That would be $7 a panel, $280. So that would cover our costs to cover that. So that's why it's more.
Any questions or comments?
Thank you, Director.
Okay, not seeing any. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we'll bring this back for the next meeting for further action.
Okay, so that now takes us to new business item B, which is a city street acceptance request for Chapter 186, Tabby Way and Mackenzie Preserve subdivision.
Okay. Do you want me to report on that, or do you want me to have Director Prescott? Seeing she's coming up, I guess that'll be Director Prescott.
Good evening, everyone. We have for new business tonight a city street acceptance request for Tabby Way. It was developed as part of the Mackenzie Preserve subdivision. This subdivision added 22 residential homes to our Flag Pond Road area, as well as a sidewalk, some other associated infrastructure, stormwater roadway. There will be a private drive off of Tabby Way called Vanessa Lane, which you are not reviewing for acceptance. It will remain in private ownership because we have heard the requests from previous council members about, from council now and previous councilors about taking on more roadway than we really need to take. So we worked with this developer and had the dead end section to remain private with maintenance agreements. So you are only reviewing the loop road and the associated infrastructure with that. The city engineer and the city attorney have reviewed the documentation you see before you. We'll do a final review before we sign off on everything, and I'll make sure we have the final paperwork on October 28th, but everything's been reviewed to date, and the compliance checks have been done, and you have the as-built in front of you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, not seeing any. Councilor Gunn, this has been assigned to you. Okay with that? Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that completes the new business items this evening. Item number 11 is the administrative update. City Administrator Bahanko.
Sure, thank you, Your Honor. Let me get to that. First, before I get into that, I want to respond to Councilor Johnston's inquiry on the revenues. Good catch, thank you. There are $100,000 for state reimbursements for public works, and another public works state reimbursement, $55,295, a wellness grant of $20,000, Saco PD revenue of $8,900, an insurance claim of $8,120. I'll get more information to you on the specifics of this, but we will change the report and reclassify these in the appropriate places.
Great, thank you.
Okay. The next item is just dealing with the Saco Old Orchard Beach PPI study. The City of Saco, in partnership with the Town of Old Orchard Beach and Maine DOT, began conducting a traffic study in 2022 of the I-95 corridor to the Temple Avenue intersection, otherwise known as the halfway intersection. This traffic study was performed by Gerald Palmer Engineers, contracted to develop the concept plans, design options for this corridor. The study focused on two areas in the Saco I-95 interchange with Main Street and the end of I-95 on Route 5, Ocean Park Road intersection. The traffic study looked at different designs and traffic patterns at these locations to improve safety and operations while maintaining acceptable levels of service and improving accessibility of various transportation modes. The option that ranked the highest was the roundabout at the I-95 and Route 5 intersection, I-95 interchange ramp. Improvements at Main Street. Saco's next steps involve continuing to work with Maine DOT and Old Orchard Beach to pursue grant opportunities for design and construction phases. A final public meeting will be scheduled on a future date in Old Orchard Beach. Saco residents who would like to learn more about that study are encouraged to attend. And when we get the date available for Old Orchard Beach, we'll put it on our website. The other item I want to just bring to your attention is an RFP on Main Street, Saco Island intersection signalization. The Public Works Department will be advertising that. And if anybody's interested, they can look at our website under bids and RFPs for additional details. The next item is residential measure and list and complete commercial and industrial revaluation. I just, as you noticed, the title of it is residential measure and list. The residential is not a revaluation. It is basically, as we have to do every few years, is go out and to determine that the information that we have on record is accurate, and where it isn't, we just correct it and go forward. So KRT Appraisal is performing the complete revaluation of 528 commercial and industrial parcels. That is a revaluation of commercial. The Communication Assessing Department are working together to inform the public of these projects. Most importantly, starting this month, Vision, which is doing the measure and list for residential, will be out and about and physically inspect the interior and measure exterior of each residential building. These data collectors note the building's location, size, age, quality of construction, improvements, topography, utilities, et cetera, and will be identified any changes on the residential cards in the assessor's office. Again, the residential measure and lists are simply data collections and verification of property attributes. The only parcels that may see value changes because of this process are ones which data was not currently provided to the assessing office. If a property already has accurate data, the measure and list will not affect their value at all. So we hope to have this information in and done for the 25-26 tax year. So I just wanted to also let you know that in November, we will be bringing back a Vision representative to give a presentation to the City Council. The last part, just KRT, as I indicated earlier, is doing the commercial and industrial revaluation, and that's going to be ongoing.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions or comments for the City Administrator? Okay, not seeing any. All right, that's moving on to item 12, and that is council discussion and comments. Any councilors wishing to speak? Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. So bear with me, because what I say might not make a whole lot of sense to in general, but to council at this time, and just keep it in your mind, because maybe more information will reveal itself later. But just overall, and I'm not implying this is current city staff or what have you, just when there's consultation with legal counsel, that information needs, I would say must, be shared with the collective council body. If it's, again, in relation to something that is, rises to council level. I'm not saying every little opinion, but certainly if it's based on our actions, our request, it needs to come to council. And it really needs to be in written format. And I state this because, there's past practice hasn't always been this way. Oftentimes we'll be told, you have a legal opinion, but that opinion is not actually given. It's a summary or whatnot. So I wanted to get that out. I'd really like to formulate that somehow going forward at council level so it lives in perpetuity, and we don't have instances that we have had throughout the years. But like I said, I guess that's for another day. And again, I'm not implying it's the current city administrator. I'm just saying that obviously, I've been made aware of particular instances where this did not occur, and it really, perhaps, I know for one thing, I would have had a different opinion myself had I been aware of that legal opinion. So it's important that councils, planning boards, all bodies that are making these decisions have all the information available to us. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Hatch? Oh, okay. You pulled that over quick. Okay, great. So moving on to item 13, is there a motion for executive session? Councilor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. Be it ordered that the City Council enter into executive session pursuant to MRSA Title I, Chapter 13, Subchapter 1, Section 4056, A, personnel matters, and D, labor contract negotiations.
Motion has been made by Councilor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Berman. Roll call vote to enter executive session. Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 to enter into executive session at 8:12. We will be meeting in City Administrator's office. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Is there a motion to exit executive session?
So moved.
Motion made by Counselor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Counselor Johnston. Roll call vote. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion to exit executive session at 8:37 passes 6-0. Is there a report from executive session?
Yes, Madam Mayor. The Saco City Council hereby authorizes the city administrator to enter into an agreement between the City of Saco and the Maine Association of Police for the Saco Command Unit effective July 1, 2024 through June 30, 2027.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, that takes us to item 15, and that is the adjournment this evening is,
We need,
oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
I'll second his motion.
That was, yep. Okay, motion has been made by Counselor Johnston, second by Counselor Hatch. Is there a motion to accept the report? Roll call vote. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Okay, item 15, motion to adjourn. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Counselor Berman. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Counselor Johnston. Roll call vote. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn at 8:38 passes 6-0. Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.